You are listening to Julia's Trucking Cafe News Hour. Welcome to Julia's Trucking Cafe Trucking News Hour. Thank you so much for joining me. As you can see, I have a different backdrop. I got into a different truck, and it's been the moving and working 70 hours a week, hauling butt with all the loads. Been running my tail off lately, trying to get everything caught up. So thank you so much again for your patience. I greatly appreciate it. And as always, I have lots of news to get to, so let's get right to it. New York police have arrested a man who allegedly set fire to a tractor trailer in June. On June 15th, the Albany Police Department announced that they had arrested 24-year-old Awan Boyd on charges of riot, E-felony, arson, it's a C felony, and criminal mischief in the second, which is a D felony. Albany police described the circumstances leading up to Boyd's arrest. On the 30th of May 2020 at approximately 9:30 at night, Boyd was a participant in a riot on South Pearl Street in which rioters stopped a tractor trailer and removed the driver forcibly. Boyd then proceeded to set fire to the tractor trailer. It was parked in the middle of South Pearl Street at Westerloo Street. Authorities say that Boyd was arraigned in Albany City Court on June 15th and released on his own recognizance. And if you would like to watch the video, it's in the show notes. And our next story is a semi-truck leaks thousands of gallons of sunflower oil on the highway. A mess results in 7 collisions. On June 13th, the semi-truck on I-40 in Oklahoma City leaked thousands of gallons of sunflower oil on the highway. The semi continued to drive for several miles as the sunflower oil spilled onto the road. Quote, from a witness, I witnessed the first accident as the semi drove down the highway. It was awful. He finally pulled over after he realized what was happening, end quote. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol said the leak caused about 7 different collisions. Another witness said, quote, I was in front of Tinker Air Force Base on 40 when I first hit the oil and a car spun out and hit the retaining wall. Then I came up to the truck. I just washed my car and got covered with the stuff. I couldn't see out of the windshield and hit the windshield wash and the wipers. Well, you're not going to get oil off your car. You'll have to get it washed again. And another witness said he was heading home from Oklahoma Heart Hospital with his mom and got this dumped all over his mom's car while he was driving, and it was a mess. We were on 40 between South May and Shields Boulevard, said another witness. According to the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, around 11 a.m. eastbound I-40 was narrowed to 1 lane for about a 20-mile stretch between MacArthur Boulevard and Interstate 240. An environmental company was called in to the scene to evaluate the spill and the cleanup. Now I'm going to be reaching over the camera as I swap articles. There again, I talk about too many articles to remember all of them. So your patience with me is greatly appreciated. And in our next article, a truck driver was trapped in his truck after power lines fell on his truck in New York State. According to that police, the driver of a roll-off container left the ramp in an elevated position after dropping off a container in the town of Union. As the driver entered onto another roadway, the ramp caught the power lines. This force caused the power lines and utility poles to topple onto the truck. The transformers caught fire and the pavement below began to melt. The truck driver was trapped for a while. However, he was able to escape after the energy workers turned off the power to the fallen lines, and thankfully the driver was not injured. And in this story, a trucker is accused of shoving a cop off of his truck at a Chicago protest. A truck driver is facing a felony charge for allegedly shoving a police officer to the ground in Chicago. 44-year-old Adam Kozlachek, I think, It's an unusual name. I thought my last name was bad. Faces a felony charge of aggravated battery to a peace officer, as well as misdemeanor charges for reckless conduct and driving on a suspended license. The charges stem from an incident that occurred Saturday, June 13th in Chicago's Little Village. Mr. Adam allegedly drove around a police cruiser blocking traffic for a protest, ignoring orders from the police to stop. Then drove his semi, quote, in the direction of the group of protesters in a reckless manner. No one was struck or injured. Chicago Police Department Deputy Chief then stepped up on the truck and opened the driver's side door, ordering him out of the truck, which you don't do. I don't care if you're a police officer or not. You asked permission to step up on my truck. You don't know if I have an animal in the truck or not. The deputy chief suffered only minor injuries in the fall. This driver reportedly shoved the deputy off the truck to the ground and was then arrested. He posted bail and was released. His court appearance was back in June 22nd. The Chicago Tribune, the local newspaper in Chicago, says that his legal team, the truck driver's legal team, says that he was only trying to do his job and that his actions were not politically motivated. Another trucker ran into trouble with protesters in Chicago's Little Village earlier in June in an incident that's caught on video. And another truck was caught smuggling marijuana over the Peace Bridge in June. This time, $5 million worth was seized. Authorities in Buffalo, New York conducted a major marijuana seizure involving a trucking company in western New York from Canada on the 16th of June. The truck was traveling across the Peace Bridge. It contained more than 1,000 kilos of marijuana. Officials say the driver claimed to be carrying just peat moss. Instead, they discovered 58 large boxes of about $5 million worth of marijuana inside the truck. The driver was identified as 30-year-old Gurpreet Singh. I never know how to pronounce the Muslim name, S-I-N-G-H. If someone could, help me pronounce that. Anyway, Singhi, something like that. Prior to the seizure on June 5th, the truck driver who was hauling goods between Canada and U.S. was arrested and charged with smuggling $2.5 million worth of marijuana at the exact same spot. U.S. Attorney James Kennedy, Director of Field Operations Rose Brophy, and Homeland Security Investigations Special Agent in charge Kevin Kelly have addressed these seizures. The seizures are a part of an ongoing string of incidents despite the border still being restricted to only essential travel. According to Brophy, since travel restrictions went into place back in March, the officers in the Buffalo field office have made 286 seizures. These amounted to over 8,700 pounds of narcotics. Combined, the two seizures this month on this Peace Bridge amount to 5,100 pounds of marijuana worth over $7.5 million. You can imagine them drug cartels are pretty pissed off. Both drivers were arrested under charges of possessing with intent to distribute and importation of marijuana. This Singhi is scheduled to have a detention hearing, and he faces a mandatory sentence of 10 years in prison if convicted, and a maximum of life in prison. In court, family cannot be sued over trucker's death due to fatigue after being forced to work 17-hour days. In Texas, the Supreme Court recently ruled that a family cannot sue a trucker company after a fatal crash caused by fatigue. Back in June, the Texas Supreme Court ruled that family of a truck driver Fabian Escobedo could not sue Movac Service, Inc. for wrongful death because of insufficient evidence that the trucking company knew that the driver's fatigue would lead to his demise. Provac provides transportation and warehousing services for the oil patch in Texas. Per the court's ruling, Escobedo's family is only eligible for workman's compensation damages. He died while en route to the company facility in Dilley, Texas on May 30th of 2012 after his truck ran off the road when he fell asleep behind the wheel. His truck struck a pole and rolled over. Escobedo ultimately perished due to positional asphyxiation. Testimony from the co-workers appearing in court documents indicate that MOVAC required drivers to alter their logbooks to hide the fact that they were violating hours of service. From the court documents, and this is quite lengthy, the article goes on for quite a while. I have a bunch of articles to get to, so you can go ahead and read this for yourself. That'll be in the show notes, and this will be episode 90. So you can go ahead and read the rest of this article for yourself if you would like to. But the gist of it is that this family cannot sue the trucking company for him falling asleep. And our next story, a car causes a crash that sends a semi-trailer drifting into oncoming traffic. A passenger vehicle collides with a semi-trailer at an intersection, causing a wild secondary crash. The jarring dash cam video was shared back on June 3rd. In the clip, the dash camera follows a white pickup truck towards an intersection while a semi-truck also approaches the intersection from the opposite direction. As the truck moves through the intersection, a car slams into the trailer, causing it to skid toward the dash camera and causing a secondary crash. And bankrupt Celadon, in this story, sells their Mexican portion of the business for more than $6 million. In news article, shuttered mega carrier Celadon entered into agreement to sell their Mexican assets for over $6 million. Back on June 11, Jaguar Transportation Inc. bid $6.8 million to acquire Celadon's Mexican assets via an online auction. According to court documents filed in the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the District of Delaware, the $6.8 million sum was adjusted down to $6.1 million after June 12 stock and asset purchase agreement. Per the agreement, Jaguar Transportation will assume Celadon's liabilities associated with their Chapter 11 filings. The assets purchased include Celadon Mexicana and Jaguar Logistics and Leasing Services. Included in the purchase are Celadon's terminal in Novero, Laredo, 5 International ProStar Class 8 trucks, and 75 trailers. PAM Transportation Services and White Willow Holdings also attempted to purchase Celadon Mexican assets, but both deals fell through. As we all know, Celadon filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy back December of 2019 and immediately announced that they would shut down operations. Yeah, all before Christmas time. And about 4,000 Celadon drivers were laid off and out of a job by Christmas. Yeah, Merry effing Christmas, you know? And Illinois way stations were reopened back in June. And according to the middle of June announcement from Illinois State Police, all the way station locations closed during the pandemic and travel restrictions will be fully operational back in the middle of June, that we all know about. Like I said, I'm just trying to catch up because I try to do a video version of the audio podcast. So for those of you that don't like a podcast, as far as listening to it, audio-wise, and you're more of a visual type of person and are on YouTube quite a bit, this is the whole reason why I do these shows twice, as I explained in the past. But if you're new, and we've got a lot of new subscribers, thank you so much. This is the reason why I do it twice, and of course always I'm running behind with the videos. But anyways, back to the news. Enough about me, back to the news. At least 20 train cars derail after smashing into a semi-truck while it was on the tracks. This happened back June 17th of 2020. A Norfolk Southern train crashed into a semi-truck in Duluth, Georgia, when it became stuck on the railroad tracks. The incident happened around 9:30 in the morning off of Buford Highway, just north of Pleasant Hill Road. Authorities say that the wreck caused 20 to 23 cars to derail off the tracks. This included 3 locomotives and 2 hazmat cars. Luckily, no hazmat material has leaked out. 2 conductors of the train and the semi-truck driver were transported to the hospital with minor injuries. And if you like my show, excuse me for that, you can make a donation on Patreon, which I'll talk about later, a little bit later toward the end of the show, and you will be able to get free gifts. So if you enjoy doing it, so you have to excuse my reach around because I'm doing this on my laptop, and then I have like my iPad to pull up the articles and stuff with, so it's kind of a deal going on. But anyway, small trucking companies may not survive if this bill passes. Last year has been tough for the trucking industry, as we all know. Several trucking companies have closed their doors, as we all know. Many of the defunct carriers cited insurance premium as one of the factors. A current bill to increase insurance requirements will put a strain on its already struggling carriers and will likely force a lot of small carriers out of business. The legislation is dubbed Investing in the New Vision for the Environment and Surface Transportation in America, Invest in America Act, and is a proposed infrastructure bill that would invest $500 billion into the nation's highways and transportation systems over the next 5 years. The standalone bill had the support of the trucking industry. However, a new provision added to the bill called the Garcia Amendment 62 could be detrimental to the trucking industry. If Invest in America bill passes, with the Garcia Amendment 62, minimum insurance for commercial motor vehicles would increase to $2 million from $750,000. The amendment was introduced by Representative Troy Garcia, a Democrat from Illinois. Of course, it's a Democrat. Excuse me, I'm not going political. And Matthew Cartwright, a Democrat from Pennsylvania. The bill will be up for debate on the end of June. Hundreds of trucking companies have ceased operations in the past 2 years. Truckers have pointed to increased insurance costs, softness in the freight market, government regulations, and difficulty in hiring qualified drivers as reasons for shuttering operations. Some of these companies include Falcon Transport, LME, NEMF, and Celadon, the ones that have closed. If this bill passes, the increased insurance costs could cause already struggling small carriers to go out of business. And in this next story, these 8 cities are slashing funding for police departments. And there's another 4 that are increasing funding. As we all know about the civil unrest, and it continues to cause violence all across this country, a number of cities are responding to protests by cutting or redirecting funding to police departments. If you're anywhere up on the news at all, you know that it's Portland and Seattle and Minneapolis, and they're all ran, and I'm not trying to get political, this is just fact, that they're all run by Democrat governors and mayors. The deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, as well as Mr. Blake recently in Kenosha, at the hands of police officers have sparked a wave of outrage. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Mr. Blake was injured, even though he was shot 7 times, but he did not pass away. With violent protests taking place on roadways and business locations across the country. In the weeks since those protests began, defund the police has become a rallying cry for many of these demonstrators, rioters, who want to take funding away from police department and put it to other community resources, like mental health services and services for the homeless. After a recent CDL Life poll indicated that truckers were reluctant to deliver to cities with defunded police departments, they rounded up a list of some of those cities that are making major changes to their police departments. LA, Minneapolis, New York, Salt Lake, Oklahoma, Hartford, Connecticut, Baltimore, Portland. While some of the cities are cutting and redirecting police department budgets, other cities are taking an opposite stance. Houston, San Diego, Durham, North Carolina, Nashville, Tennessee have all approved or raised funding for police departments. More cities vote on their budgetary spending in the coming weeks to prepare for the state of the new fiscal year. The number of police departments in both categories is expected to increase. And House votes to, like I mentioned, to up trucker insurance requirements to $2 million. We're not going to go ahead and reiterate that again. And a truck driver is arrested after posting a video threatening to kill protesters. The FBI has arrested a truck driver who allegedly posted a video to YouTube threatening to kill protesters. On Monday, and this was back around the middle of June, FBI agents arrested Manuel Flores, a 42-year-old truck driver who lives in El Paso. Flores was arrested on a federal charge of making a threat over the internet. He allegedly posted a video under a YouTube account called Don't CA My Texas. According to federal criminal complaint, Flores recorded and uploaded a video to YouTube entitled Bloody Blah Blah Lives Matter, in which he made threatening comments to Black Lives Matter protesters, end quote. The complaint states that in the video, Flores' face cannot be seen. He's only visible from the knees down. What appears to be an AR-15 can be seen resting on his feet. In the video, Flores says that he would be traveling on I-20 eastbound through Dallas. He allegedly dared Black Lives Matter supporters to stop him. Flores further stated that, "My dream is at least to take out at least 200, the complaint says. Flores remained in custody of the U.S. Marshal Service and is awaiting transfer to El Paso. If convicted, he faces up to 5 years in federal prison because he threatened people's lives, which is domestic terrorism, you know, to shoot people. And now it's time to take a short break. As truck drivers, we all know what it's like to be at a shipper's or receiver's and have to wait to be loaded for hours on end. Am I right? Especially produce coolers and paper mills. That's why you need to be prepared with extra food in your truck. My Patriot Supply helps you stay prepared. Now, it's not what you may be thinking. My Patriot Supply is delicious emergency food. They have food kits that are good up to 25 years, and they come in a slim light tote that you can easily store in your food pantry or under your bunk. I could speak from experience after living through Hurricane Katrina. We were without power for 10 days, my mother, my son, and I. And if it weren't for the MREs that were flown into us, we wouldn't have had any food. 4 60-foot pine trees broke in half during that storm and landed across my driveway, landlocking me in, so I couldn't get out for food. And there were 4-mile gas lines then. That's when My Patriot Supply emergency food would have come in real handy. If I knew then what I know now about My Patriot Supply, I would have definitely had some of this food stockpiled in my pantry. Now, for limited time, you could get a 1-week food supply in a handy and neat looking ammo can. And they even offer gluten-free food for just under $100. All you have to do to get yours today is go to my website at juliastruckercafe.com, go along the toolbar, and you'll see the emergency food supply tab. Click on that, scroll down, and click on any of the images that you see to find out more information. You need to be prepared, and it's important to stay well stocked in your truck. You insure your car, you buy health insurance, vision and dental. Now, why not buy food insurance? Stay prepared for anything that happens. Get yours today. Go to juliastruckercafe.com, click on the emergency food supply tab, and order yours. Welcome back to Julia's Trucker Cafe Trucking News Hour. Let's get back to the second half of the show. I greatly appreciate you all continuing to listen to me and tune in to the second half of the show. Now, in our top story, a sleeping truck driver narrowly escapes a truck fire. The driver was sleeping in his truck at a Kohl's parking lot in Plover, Wisconsin. back in June. The fire started around 4:30 in the afternoon. By the time the fire department arrived, the cab was fully engulfed. Chief Deaver of the Plover Fire Department says that the truck driver was awakened by a phone call from a friend of his. That call likely saved his life. Quote, he did get woken up by a phone call of a friend, and as we said, he should be thanking his friend for his life today. He was very lucky, and the cause of the fire is unknown at the time of that story. And struggling companies may not survive once the Paycheck Protection Program fund ends. Freightways released its June market update back in June, and the question and answer section, Strickland was asked, when the PPP loans run out, do you expect an uptick in trucking company failures? He said that the loans essentially sustain struggling companies. He said that if trucking companies were struggling before, they likely didn't fix the issues, and once the money runs out, they'll be facing the same issues again. Even before the virus, many trucking companies were struggling to survive. Over the last 2 years, hundreds of trucking companies have shut their doors, citing increased insurance costs, a soft freight market, and regulations. This doesn't appear to be an end in sight for struggling carriers, as the House just passed that bill upping the insurance that I previously spoke about. And in our next story, Atlanta says they could still police the city after cops call in sick as protest. Back then, Atlanta Police Department claimed that they still have enough resources to police the city after officers called in sick in protest after charges were brought against an officer. On June 17th, officers with the Atlanta Police Department stopped responding to calls in 3 of the city's 6 zones, according to CNN. The alleged walkout occurred shortly after prosecutors announced that they would issue 11 felony charges against fired Atlanta Police Department Garrett Rolfe for his role in the shooting death of Rashard Brooke. Atlanta Police Department issued a statement denying any claims of a walkout by the officers, but they said they're still able to police the city. And in this story, a trucker swerves to avoid a suspected DUI motorist and rolls over the retaining wall. 4 people were hurt in a crash that happened when a trucker was forced to swerve to avoid a reportedly intoxicated driver. This crash occurred on I-94 in Kenosha, Wisconsin on June 17th. Around 7 p.m., Kenosha County Sheriff's Department responded to a 2-vehicle crash at the 9000 block of I-94. The 65-year-old truck driver was driving southbound on 94 when a Buick that was also southbound veered into his lane. The truck driver swerved to avoid the collision, sending his truck into the west retaining wall. The truck tipped partially over the wall and its contents were spilled onto the interstate. 3 passengers of the Buick and the semi-truck driver were all taken to a local hospital. 59-year-old Buick driver Avery Norman from Waterloo, Iowa was arrested for operating while intoxicated, causing injury, and transported to the Kenosha County Jail. Well, at least they got the guy. And another beer truck spills over, and you do realize when this happens, it's alcohol abuse, right? So a semi rolled and spilled hundreds of cases of beer on I-84 in Morgan County, Utah. The Mountain Green, Weber, and Morgan Fire and EMS crews responded to the scene of a single vehicle crash around 1 p.m. on June 17th. Cases of beer had spilled out of the top of the semi and scattered onto the shoulder of I-84. The driver was able to exit the truck with the help of some passing truckers. He did not sustain any injuries. The cause of the crash is still under investigation. Crews cleaned up oil spilled from the truck and were able to reopen the road around 7 o'clock that evening. And this gentleman right here with a pissed off look on his face is a suspected kidnapper. was arrested after a woman escapes his truck. This is Mr. Lanny Beroth. He was arrested by deputies on Northwest Frontage Road on around June 19th. A woman had escaped his truck and gone to a nearby convenience store. She reported that she had been assaulted and held against her will, who had driven her from California. He's charged with second-degree kidnapping, is being held at the Multnomah County Jail, and the woman was taken to the hospital for evaluation. I'm not sure what state that was in. They don't, silly news outlet don't report what state it was in. In Illinois, however, a truck driver, their state police department, I'll spit this out eventually, are being investigated as an officer-involved shooting that occurred at a trucking company back on the 18th of June. This occurred at DVL Express facility in Markham, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. Police were called to that facility after reports of an unnamed truck driver in his 30s who was in mental distress and was harming himself while waiting to take a load. When police arrived at the facility, they found the truck driver stabbing and slicing himself with 2 knives. They chased the truck driver to try to apprehend him. The truck driver reportedly lunged at a female police officer with the knives. The officer responded by opening fire on him. The truck driver was transported. I'll spit this out eventually. Was transported to the hospital with critical injuries. Police later said they found a large amount of blood in his cab. No one else was hurt. And the police officer who shot the truck driver is on administrative leave as they investigate everything. And in this story, this young man is accused of taking videos of unsuspecting women at truck stops. He is in Utah and has been accused of taking videos and pictures of unsuspecting victims at truck stops throughout the country. His name is Stephen Callan, a registered sex offender, has been arrested and is accused of taking pictures and videos of women and children. According to the Layton, Utah Police Department, a search of Callan's phone revealed a multitude of adults and juveniles in public restrooms across the nation appeared to be in truck stops. Layton police said that Callan claimed the videos on his phone were downloaded. However, Callan's face appeared in several of them, as is Callan filmed in selfie mode. Brilliant! Many of them will have no idea that they were victims of this crime. Police say there are hundreds of victims from all over the country. The victims probably didn't know they were being victimized. He has a history of stalking and voyeurism charges in 2017 and 2019, and he served time for voyeurism. March 7, 2020, he was arrested again for the same charges. In other words, he's an habitual offender. So if you see him, be on the lookout for him. Hopefully they have his butt in jail and tossed away the key for a very long time. You'll have to excuse my glasses. I'm getting old, can't see around anything. You're getting a glare off of my laptop, and really, until I get some better lighting in here, there's not a whole lot that I can do about that to try to ease the glare at all. And Volvo has announced in this story their first VNR electric truck will be hitting the roads. More and more leaders in the industry race to enter the electric semi-truck market. Volvo has announced the deployment of its first pilot VNR electric truck in California. The truck is operating at Volvo Trucks North America TEC equipment dealership in Fontana, California, transporting parts between dealerships in Fontana and La Mirada. Plans for the Volvo VNR truck was announced in 2018. The zero emissions vehicle represents the future of regional hauling. Yeah. They are so wanting to get rid of fossil fuels that, you know, how many miles can it go? You can't go across country or anything with it. So how many miles is it gotta go with it, you know? You just kind of got to wonder. And in other news, Love's is opening up another site. And they open up a Georgia location and donates $450,000 to fight racial inequality. They opened up a Georgia network. It's off of Highway 280 in Ella Bell, Georgia, back on June 18th. And they made a large donation to Oklahoma City Social Justice Program. And they're excited to open up their 13th location. And a study shows people doing wild things while they're driving. In a new survey, U.S. drivers admit to some jaw-dropping distracted driving behaviors that they perform behind the wheel. The distracted driving study was recently released by insurance comparison website The Zebra. While it is no surprise that using a phone while driving was the #1 distracted driving behavior, it is pretty surprising that 2,600 survey respondents fessed up to some of the other behaviors that included sexual activity, vomiting, and putting in contact lenses. So, starting at number 29, they all admitted to changing a child's diaper. 28, painting fingernails or toenails. 27, shaving face or legs. 26, putting in contact lenses. 25, filed or clipped fingernails or toenails. 24, fed a baby a bottle. 23, tweezed eyebrows or facial hair. 22, read a newspaper or a book. 21, changed seats with a passenger. 20, urinated. 19, flossed their teeth. 18, 19, vomited. Got the numbers just a little bit mixed up. 18, consumed drugs. And 17, consumed alcohol. 15, changed seats with a passenger. And 14, smacked someone else in the car. 16 was popped a pimple. Then 13 was sent emails. 12, taken a selfie. 11, watched a video content on a phone or other device. 10, engaged in sexual activity. 9, applied makeup or deodorant. 8, brushed their hair. 7, cleaned dashboard or windows. 6, put on or taken off clothing. Now this is while they're driving, mind you. 5, kissed someone. 4, eaten a full meal. 3, picked your nose. 2, texted. And 1, number 1, read something on the phone or other device. Oh my goodness. I'm like, really? Now in this story, feds accuse a former trucking company owner of an elaborate scheme to defraud Amazon. The former owner of Rhode Island Trucking Company is facing serious charges after federal investigators uncovered a complicated scheme of his to defraud Amazon while investigating other crimes. Back on June 17th, the U.S. Attorney's Office of Rhode Island announced that 40-year-old Michael Chavez had been arrested and charged with wire fraud and mail fraud in connection with the scheme. Chavez owned in the now defunct Rumford, Rhode Island-based auto transport trucking company, Cat Auto Logistics. Chavez is waiting sentencing in a separate case for fraudulently obtaining more than $400,000 from financial institutions and using the stolen personal identifying information of another person to continue to illegally operate his auto hauling business after being ordered to shut down for safety violations. Okay, so let me break that down real quickly into layman's terms. So he's already in jail, okay, Mr. Chavez. He's awaiting to be sentenced on another case of obtaining more than $400,000 from banks and lending companies, okay? All the time, he stole somebody's identity, went to different financial institutions, made out loans or asked for cash or something like that to continue his business in this person's name after he was told he was shut down because for safety violations. He pled guilty in August of 2019 for falsifying U.S. DOT records, hours of service, and everything else, aggravated identity theft, and 5 counts of bank fraud, 2 counts of wire fraud, and tax evasion. While they were investigating these crimes that Chavez pled guilty to, in August of 2019, the IRS and the DOT stumbled onto the Amazon scheme. While executing a court-authorized search, in other words, they went in to search his home and business, agents spotted a large number of opened and unopened Amazon packages and packing material at the business location. Items in the room included televisions, incense, European wall plugs, some for phone chargers, computer parts, small electronics, and a significant quantity of auto parts. In other words, a large amount of auto parts. This discovery triggered another investigation into what federal authorities turned out to be a large-scale scheme against Amazon. UPS driver later told investigators that he dropped off Amazon packages and picked up returns at the business location every day. Quote, oftentimes dropping off an Amazon package one day and picking up the same package the next day as a return back to Amazon. As a part of this scheme, authorities say that Chavez would replace an original product with a similar substitute product before returning it to Amazon. He then simply returned Amazon boxes containing an item that a similar weight as the original product, once ordering a commercial truck tire and returning 2 pieces of wood in the same box. Authorities say that since March of 2017, Chavez held approximately 30 Amazon customer accounts under various names and email addresses. Over this time period, Chavez accounts placed approximately 10,795 orders, totaling $713,970.78. Oh, can we do the forehead slap? Most of which have been refunded based on Chavez's return of the items purchased. So guess what? That screws it for the rest of us. Chavez allegedly received a total of $643,324.04 in concessions or refunds on 7,450 orders, including nearly 7,200 items that were physically returned to Amazon. Amazon's standard inspection process flagged approximately 149 of those returned items as potentially fraudulent, valued at $23,872.89. Following an appearance in the U.S. District Court in Rhode Island, Chavez was ordered to remain in federal custody until a possible pretrial hearing. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, the stuff that people will do to make money. Instead of, busting his ass like the rest of us, like honest folks. Unbelievable. And the list of the state and local idling regulations for 2020 could save truckers from a costly fine. I will leave this in the show notes for you so that you can view it yourself when you get time. But anymore, pretty much all the trucks have APUs in them, I would assume. But there again, you know what happens when you assume something. So you can look over that list. And a pickup truck driver picks a fight with the trucker in the left lane. So you can look at this video in the bottom. I'm not going to post it here. And, I got brake checked recently. So, it's a pain in the butt. But anyways, we have more news to get to than important stuff to get to than being brake checked in the left lane, which happens on a freaking daily basis. And of course now my iPad's gonna mess up. And now there's some organizational hacks that every new driver needs to know. I'm surprised that it's taken, you know, this news outlet so doggone long to put this out there. I'm possibly looking at doing some sort of a guide, writing some sort of a guide or a manual here in the future of, I don't know what I'm going to entitle it yet, but all the different tricks and tips that I can give new drivers out here on what's the best things to carry, how to secure stuff in your truck, inside your truck, you know, just a list that you would have an easy guide, you know, that they could go through. So here are some ways to organize your truck that could seem like, you know, impossible. You know, this is this whole space here is like a, you know, a 4x6 cell, what I like to call, and your truck is your home away from home. So here are some of the things that you can use. Clickable lights, and that they're self-adhesive. You have to be careful. Also, always look at your company policies about using the Velcro or self-adhesive tape, double-sided tape, because once that stuff gets stuck to these kind of surfaces behind me, like down here, and everything's backwards over here, and this kind of thing, like this hook right here, that was in the truck. Okay, so you can see it's not gonna, you know, that has to be left to the truck. You can't turn around and take it out. And then to make sure that it doesn't peel off the finish or anything else if you're a company truck. So always look at your company guidelines for that. There again, handheld vacuum, storage containers, Rubbermaid containers are always good. I have a 3-drawer labeling, or a 3-drawer container, storage container that is like my junk drawers and stuff that I put a lot of different things in. And a grant, trucking grant, swap articles here, provides $11.2 million to fund a Tennessee DOT Smart Fiber project along Interstate 40. Tennessee Department of Transportation has been awarded $11.2 million grant to fund the expansion of intelligent transportation ITS technologies along 40. The Federal Infrastructure for Rebuilding America grant will provide partial funding for the state's Smart Fiber project between Memphis and Nashville. Smart Fiber project is expected to install 143 miles of fiber optic communication in Tennessee along Interstate 40. This includes camera, dynamic messaging signs, road weather sensors, and connected vehicle roadside units. All of these devices support the strategic build-out of broadband and smart transportation infrastructure. I'm thinking they're going to be going to self-driving trucks in the near future, just like Ohio has a big project going on as well. This project will aid in the state's efforts to increase safety, communication to drivers, monitor roadway conditions, and improve response times to incidents and weather-related emergencies. So it'll begin in late 2021. So we have another year for that. Now, when this next story, a trucker was the only one who to stop to help a motorist, and now his story is going viral. A female motorist who got lost and found herself stuck in a ditch shared the story of a truck driver who came to her rescue. Facebook user Samantha Boomer shared her story of her encounter with a truck driver, Joel Lewis, back on June 3rd. And she writes, and it's very short. I took a wrong turn coming out of the Ocala National Forest. As I turned around, I ended up in a ditch. Phone reception wasn't great, and rain clouds rolling in. During the span of about 15 minutes, 20 cars must have passed on a single-lane highway. After a while of trying to drive the car out, a giant truck pulls up. Well, you know, we're not that giant. A guy jumps out with a big smile. He grabs a strap and gets underneath my car and proceeds to pull my car out of the ditch. Joel, thank you for stopping and being my angel today. My heart is so full of gratitude. With all the tension in the world right now, I got back in my car and burst into tears. Love wins. Now to pay it forward. Since Boomer posted her story, it has been shared more than 11,000 times. And this next story, a truck driver that was hurt during a protest in California speaks out. A truck driver who was making deliveries to car dealerships in Oakland, California, encountered a group of protesters and was attacked. This incident occurred back May 29th. Tony Menendez was at the intersection of Broadway and 27th at Oakland when he was attacked. Menendez said that a protester threw a bottle through his passenger window, causing a large gash in his arm. Menendez said that he was losing a lot of blood from the wound on his arm, and he said he showed the protesters that he was injured and they let him move. Menendez drove to the nearest fire department and the firefighters called an ambulance. The injury required 7 stitches. That same night, protesters jumped onto a grocery delivery truck on Interstate 880 in Oakland. Menendez spoke with the local television station about his experience. He said that he wanted protesters to know that violence has no place in protest against violence. Protesting is fine, but hurting others and committing violence towards people who have nothing to do with police or politics just doesn't make any sense, he told the local police department. Or I'm sorry, the local news outlet. And videos show massive fire and explosions from a truck carrying 1,000 propane tanks. This happened in Canada, and several fire crews reported to the scene. This happened back at the end of June. The truck was allegedly carrying 1,020-pound propane tanks. The intense flames forced crews to keep their distance at first. They were able to battle the fire once propane tanks stopped exploding. The incident caused extensive damage to the roadway and no injuries were reported. Fire Chief Shane Slack said the fire started in truck trailer's brakes, according to a Canada-based television station. So keep going fast down those doggone hills, you know it? And this is the devastation that this Ashley Field. Here's a look at the damage afterwards of all the truck and the propane tanks. And this woman, accused of fatally stabbing a truck driver on a California interstate, she is going to be standing trial for murder. A woman who was accused of stabbing a truck driver to death last year will stand trial for murder, according to a California judge. 24-year-old Vanessa Ruvalcaba had been ordered to stand trial on homicide charges after a Riverside County Superior Court judge ruled on June 19th that there was sufficient evidence to move forward. That was her preliminary hearing. She remains in jail on $1 million bond as she awaits a July 10 hearing. Charges against Ruvalcaba stem from an incident that occurred on the morning of April 20th in Lake Elsinore, California. Witnesses spotted her running away from a bobtail truck parked along the shoulder of I-15 and called police. The California Highway Patrol and Riverside County Sheriff's Office were able to locate and detain her near the truck. They found 32-year-old truck driver Halbolda Davila Jr. suffering from stab wounds inside the truck. After examination of the bobtail, an adult male was located severely injured while sitting on the driver's seat of the truck. The male was pronounced deceased from wounds consisting from a stabbing. The motive for the attack remains unclear, and authorities have not explained why he was parked on I-15. She previously pled not guilty back in May. And the DA shares explosive new info on a truck driver who fatally stabbed 3 Pilot employees. Back in June, authorities in Tennessee provided new information and video related to a multiple stabbing and officer-involved shooting incident at a Pilot truck stop near Knoxville earlier in the year. 4 women were stabbed in April. 33-year-old North Carolina-based truck driver named Idris Salam was shot to death by police after he refused to drop a knife when confronted by police in the truck stop parking lot. He previously stabbed 4 women at the truck stop. 3 of the women, Joyce Wally, 57, Patricia Denise Knibb, 51, Nettie R. Spencer, 41, were pilot employees who passed away from their injuries. A 4th woman, who was a customer, survived the attack. The DA says the trucker acted alone and had no plans with an escort. For months, investigators with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and Knox County DA's office had been working to determine why he attacked the women. There are 3 key takeaways. Investigators believe that he worked alone. The motive for the attack is still murky, and the use of lethal force is considered to be justified, and no charges will be filed against the police officer who shot the man. And crash causes fireworks to actively explode in a semi-trailer. The Nebraska State Patrol are investigating a crash involving a semi-truck hauling fireworks that left multiple people injured. This happened June 19th in Nebraska around 11 o'clock in the morning. Troopers say that an SUV and a semi-truck collided at the intersection of Highway 77 and Road F in Dodge County. By the time the Nebraska State Patrol arrived on the scene, the semi-truck, which was hauling fireworks, was fully engulfed in flames, and the fireworks were actively exploding. Both people in the SUV were transported to the hospital for treatment, and the truck driver was treated at the scene. And in this story, gosh darn it, a pickup truck is in a heck of a hurry and doesn't slow down even after colliding with a semi. And this happened June 17th. If you enjoy my show and would like to support me, you can do so. The links are in the description below, and you can make a monthly or a one-time donation. Please subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button below, and if you click on the bell, you'll be notified about any time I upload a new video. I greatly appreciate all of you who tune in to listen to me here on the cafe. Thank you for having my arms reach around and everything. I greatly appreciate it. I also have links on my website at juliastrucketcafe.com. If you also are on Facebook, please give us a like, and also please like our discussion group at Julia's Truckett Cafe Regulars. Please look around the website. Under the cafe menu, I have a bunch of stuff going on. I do cooking videos when I have time. I need to get some more of those out. I also have an email list. You can subscribe to that by going to juliastrucketcafe.com/newsletter, and to do that. Anyway, please go to juliastrucketcafe.com/newsletter, and I will send you the show notes right into your inbox. So this way you don't have to keep going around and looking or digging for them on the website. In the future, if I have new things coming out, you'll be the first one to know if you're on the list. Please feel free to leave a comment on the bottom of any episode. If you would like to email me, my email is info@juliastrucketcafe.com. But you all take care. Thanks again so much for listening, and until next time. You have been listening to Julia's Truckett Cafe Truckin' News Hour. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Take care. Have a blessed day.